In the early 1990s, economists had almost lost hope in the developing world's progress as it was not growing as expected. But then a change occurred. Global trade boomed in the late 1990s, and the income gap between the rich and the rest of the world started closing rapidly. Poverty rates plummeted. In 1990, 36% of the world's population lived on less than $1.90 a day, but by 2022, that number had dropped to less than 10%. Africa, too, saw a reduction in extreme poverty, dropping from 53% to 35%, even though its population was rapidly increasing. Now, the African economy is among the world's fastest growing. The changes in Africa are becoming increasingly significant, positioning the continent for a more prominent role in global affairs. But how are African economies doing, and why are some improving while others are not? To understand how African economies are doing, we've grouped them into two categories: those with strong growth, 5% or higher, and those with weak growth, less than 5%. Within each growth category, we further divide the countries into three subgroups: non-resource intensive countries, oil exporters, and other resource-intensive countries. Based on data from 2013 to 2023, out of the 41 countries studied, 18 achieved a growth rate of 5% or higher. These countries include all three types of economies, while 8 out of the 18 strong growth economies are non-resource intensive countries. They are the majority. So what's driving the progress in these African countries while others struggle? For decades, commodities have greatly influenced Africa's economic growth. When commodity prices were high, the economy did well, but when prices dropped, the continent's economy suffered too. Africa is rich in resources like minerals, oil, and diamonds, but remains the world's poorest continent. Many believe that former colonial powers or corruption and bad governance are to blame. However, according to McKinsey & Company research, Africa is defying expectations and turning its diversity into opportunities. Now let's delve into the stories of similar African countries that have taken different paths and offer valuable lessons for us all. Our first lesson comes from Rwanda and Burundi. Both countries are small, landlocked, and densely populated. Since gaining independence, they both faced genocides against their Tutsi minorities by the Hutu majorities. In the early 1990s, Burundi's income was almost similar to that of Rwanda, but since then, Rwanda's income has more than tripled, while Burundi's has fallen, making it the world's poorest country. Why is that? One significant difference between the two lies in their governance. Neither country is democratic, but Rwanda has a functional government with low corruption, while Burundi has experienced political strife and coup attempts. The Ibrahim Index of African Governance, which assesses indicators like the rule of law, infrastructure, and sanitation, ranks Rwanda 12th, while Burundi is placed 43rd. Our second lesson focuses on how economic policies matter. In the early 1960s, Kenya and Tanzania had similar economies, both dependent on farming, with nearly identical per capita incomes. Both initially suppressed democracy to run authoritarian one-party states, but they chose different economic models. Tanzania nationalized big companies and promoted African socialism. In contrast, Kenya embraced free markets, encouraging investment and implementing regulatory reforms to streamline foreign and local investments. As a result, Kenyans are now 80% wealthier than Tanzanians. The third lesson emphasizes leadership and economic choices through the stories of Botswana and Zimbabwe. In the early 1980s, Zimbabwe was wealthier than Botswana, but Zimbabwe's second president, Robert Mugabe, destroyed its economy with reckless printing of banknotes, land seizures, and authoritarian rule. Botswana's first president, Seretse Khama, implemented an ambitious economic agenda to create an export-driven economy centered around beef, copper, and diamonds. Khama also took strict measures to combat corruption. As a result, Botswana's wealth is now 9 times greater than that of Zimbabwe. Mauritius, a small island nation in Africa, has defied the odds and become one of the continent's success stories. It boasts a high GDP per person and a high Human Development Index, HDI, proving that smart policies and strong institutions can bring prosperity. Back in the day, experts like Nobel laureate James Meade were skeptical about Mauritius. They thought it was stuck in a Malthusian trap, where poor development prospects were expected due to heavy reliance on sugar farming, trade issues, a growing population, and ethnic tension. Philippines. But Mauritius surprised everyone. It not only kept the peace, but also enjoyed stable economic growth, with an impressive 5% annual growth rate from 1980 to 2000, often called the Mauritian economic miracle. The secret? Foreign investment played a big role. Good economic policies helped, but it was the investors who transformed Mauritius. Now, other African countries have tried to boost their economies by attracting foreign investors, but only a few, like Ethiopia, Lesotho, and South Africa, followed Mauritius's path to success. One crucial factor in Mauritius's success is its strong institutions. Since gaining independence, Mauritius has held fair elections, followed the rule of law, kept its courts honest, and managed to control corruption. These institutions are the backbone of its success. In contrast, look at Madagascar, a bigger neighbor with rich resources. It took a different path in the 1970s, adopting a socialist approach that led to an economic collapse, investor expulsions, and land seizures from farmers. One significant challenge that African economies have always faced is corruption and mismanagement. Corruption is when people in power misuse their authority for personal gain. This problem is common in many countries and can hold back economic growth. In Nigeria, corruption is a big problem, especially in the oil industry. Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa, but it's also one of the most corrupt countries, ranking 150th out of 180 on the Corruption Perception Index. The good news is that there's hope for improvement. By 2030, if Nigeria can reduce corruption to levels similar to Malaysia, its economy could grow by about 37%. Nigeria has seen good economic growth in the past, but it needs to diversify beyond just oil and agriculture. The country often hires people based on connections rather than qualifications, making institutions less efficient. High corruption also scares away foreign investors, leading to higher prices and lower tax income. Even in South Africa, corruption is a problem. However, South Africa has a diversified economy and a growing middle class. It's the second largest economy in Africa and is highly developed. For many years, South Africa had effective institutions and cooperation among different groups, which fueled growth and reduced poverty. South Africa's fiscal space allowed better public services and social grants, lifting people out of poverty. The nation also benefited from increased regional trade and global exports, which boosted productivity. Africa's population is growing rapidly. Back when colonial powers divided Africa, it had fewer than 100 million people, which was about a third of Europe's population at the time. Today, there are almost 2 Africans for every European. Some people worry that this rapid population growth could be a problem. Although the poverty rate is falling, about a third of African children are still malnourished. Every month, about 1 million Africans enter the job market, but many of them do not have the education or skills they need. In fact, more than a third of African children do not finish secondary school. In some countries like Mozambique and Madagascar, more than half of children don't finish secondary school. Despite these challenges, there are reasons for hope. Rapid urbanization, increasing migration and remittances, a rising number of children in school, and the hundreds of thousands of students studying at universities abroad will provide reasons for optimism. The most important lesson, and the one that holds the most promise, is that many of these trends reinforce one another. Countries with capable bureaucracies and open democratic systems tend to do better economically and invest more in education. This, in turn, contributes to slower population growth and improved dependency ratios. While not all nations are part of this virtuous cycle, the differences are stark for those that are. It's important to keep working on these challenges and take lessons from countries that have managed to make progress. Africa's growth is happening, and with the right actions and policies, it can be a brighter and more prosperous continent for all its people. When countries make use of their natural advantages, economic prosperity is bound to follow. Take Sweden, for example. The mining industry is making Sweden insanely rich. Click the video on screen now to learn more about Sweden's mining industry. You won't believe the rare earth metal the country has recently uncovered.